From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
So let's do a little politics. I kind of let it off with the San Francisco Democrat, ultra-progressive, big government socialism. There she is out there with a little bump in the polls. Let's talk to Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, and I got a whole new read here. This is amazing. Progressively worse. Why today's Democrats ain't your daddy's donkeys. Released July 30th. Thursday. In 10 minutes, it's going to be out. Can you pre-order it?
Oh, yeah. It's available on Amazon right now. Wherever you buy books, barnesandnoble.com. Progressively worse. Why today's Democrats ain't your daddy's donkeys. Couldn't be better timed from after everything we've seen over the last month, Larry.
Good, very timely. You got this thing done pretty good. Care about blue-collar workers, protest against new wars, defend free speech, criticize the elites and Wall Street, limits on immigration. I think Mark Simone, Hall of Fame radio host, 710 WOR weekdays, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I think Mark might have been your daddy's donkey. I think he could have been one of those old donkeys. What do you think about that, Mark Simone? Were you an old Democratic donkey?
No, never. You think I voted for George McGovern?
I was a Democrat out of college, early 20s. But that was a very long time ago. That was a half a century ago. So I don't know. I don't know who these donkeys are, but she ain't a donkey. Can I just ask you, Mark Simone, this FBI director comes out and says Trump wasn't hit by a bullet. Okay? He wasn't hit by a bullet? Really? He wasn't hit by a bullet? And, of course, Trump slammed him. And this is Christopher Wray. And then yesterday, the FBI finally comes out and says, yeah, he was hit by a bullet. This is what's wrong with the deep state. This is exactly what's wrong with the whole crowd in Washington, D.C. This is the FBI trying to start to cover up their mistakes, because they're a big part of this story, along with the Secret Service, Mark Simone. Mark Simone, you think he was hit by a bullet after Dr. Ronnie Jackson examined him carefully and said, yes, of course he was, after we all saw with our own eyes? What do you think? What do you make of this story?
Well, we know he was because the original examining doctors, there's a way they can prove it was a bullet, and Ronnie Jackson confirmed that. But it shows that Ray never talked to the hospital. His people never interviewed those doctors. And they've explained a bullet creates a very straight line, sort of a tunnel, and it pushes the skin in a certain way around the edges of it. And they saw that. Ronnie Jackson looked right at it, saw it too. That's absolute medical confirmation it's a bullet. It just shows Ray never talked to them, so that makes you wonder how thorough he is with everything else in this investigation.
Right. This was, Joe, I had Ronnie Jackson on the TV show, I guess Thursday night, and he was furious because he wrote a long memo about this, as Mark Simone just suggested, after he examined him hours after the bullet hit. But, Joe, the FBI, this is cover-up city. This is the FBI and the Russian hoax. This is the FBI owning the Hunter Biden laptop computer, for a year before the stuff really came out. And this is the FBI who helped to screw up this whole story south of Pittsburgh at Butler, Pennsylvania. That's what this is.
This is the same media that told us, by the way, that the Steele dossier was real. And the FBI, obviously, remember James Comey, he's the one who helped push that lie, right? And then, he got 2 book deals and got a Showtime series. All these guys get rewarded. John Brennan, Clapper, they're all on cable news now, and you can't tell the difference between them and, Keith Olbermann. So whatever, I guess they did their jobs objectively, though, when they were in office, right? Here's the thing. The fact that I'm watching MSNBC last night and Lawrence O'Donnell is still on national television saying that he doesn't believe that Trump was shot. Without any proof whatsoever. The only way glass could have hit Donald Trump's ear is if a bullet hit the teleprompters, and they did not. They were perfectly intact. Snopes did a fact check 48 hours after the assassination attempt to completely debunk that, and yet you still have Christopher Wray out there saying, I don't know, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Does it matter, actually, by the way? I mean, of course he was hit, but the fact that we should all be talking about and the FBI should be concentrating on is how the hell did you allow that 20-year-old kid to outflank all those Secret Service officers, to outflank all those local police and get up on the one roof that had a line of sight to the former president of the United States? And if he doesn't turn his head, which he almost never turns it that much, but that chart was there, if he doesn't turn his head the way he did at the time that he did, he's dead. He wouldn't be here right now. And the fact that we're all kind of like blowing past this, like, oh, well, no big deal. But boy, the brass, you know what, on Trump, that he's going back there to that same site to finish the rally.
Yes.
That's, again, the big theme here, guys. Strength versus weakness. COVID takes Biden off the map for a week. You don't see him on camera. Donald Trump's going back to do this rally. Kamala Harris is sitting down with RuPaul's drag queens as her first interview, but won't dare do a press conference. Donald Trump, meanwhile, accessible, takes questions from anybody. It doesn't matter. Strength versus weakness, guys.
Trump tough, I call it. Trump tough. Mark Simone, what do you think about it? It's going back to Butler, Pennsylvania. I don't know exactly when, but he's going back to celebrate the death of that fireman and essentially, look this thing in the eye, which is what he does. He is a strong guy. He's Trump tough.
Well, I know Joe Biden heading back to Atlanta to finish up that debate. But,
is that the same as going back to Butler?
It's not just toughness. It just shows what a brilliant marketer Donald Trump is. Everybody will cover that moment, that rally, and wait to hear what he has to say then. I think he goes after Christopher Wray. I think he exposes this guy. Hey, by the way, there's another big FBI hoax, and they're going to use it all through the campaign. This new FBI report that crime is down dramatically. It's a survey of cities. They left out New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia. Yeah, they've left it out of the report. It's a survey of smaller towns. The fact that the media hasn't exposed this is just terrible.
I didn't even see that survey. When did that come out?
2 weeks ago, and it's a quarterly crime report. Usually it's an annual one. There's a quarterly one. The fact that they left out those cities, and there's no way that happened without Ray approving that.
I mean, I think this is the swamp, okay? You're back right smack in the middle of the swamp. And I think, Mark, I think about this. This is a cover-up. The Secret Service, now, I don't know, I'm not blaming the rank and file necessarily, the people out in the field. But the Washington crowd of the CIA and the Secret Service and the FBI and other law enforcement agencies and intelligence agencies, including the CIA. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy guy because we have proof positive. As Joe said, we've seen this before. They are trying essentially, if not to cover it up, to just throw as much sand and dirt and mud at it so it's not as apparent. They're failures. And this is why they have to clean house. Now, let me think about it this way. The task force, the congressional task force, Mark, okay, and that's probably a good idea, 7 Republicans, 6 Democrats, so it's bipartisan in effect. But they have to have investigators who are experts, and I'll say investigators and whistleblowers, so they interview everyone that needs to be interviewed, both civilians and the authorities. That's what they have. They cannot take the word of the top brass, and they cannot let the top brass run these investigations, Mark Simone. What do you think of that? That's the key point, I think.
Yeah, but you get the swamp in control right now. There was another statement that Ray made about something like, we're only investigating the shooter himself, and that's it. You want to investigate who he knew, who he was in contact with, but that statement made it sound like they would only concentrate on his acts that day and not look for conspiracy, which is the silliest thing a director could say. And you keep saying failure, too. I don't know that it was simply failure. I mean, they left him with way too tiny a detail. They know what size those rallies are. They know they didn't have enough people to cover them. It could be even competence in failure, or it could be something worse than that.
But, Joe, I want them to investigate every single person. Like the head of the Pittsburgh Secret Service needs to be investigated, all right? Needs to be brought in and take notes and interviewed. All the Secret Service people should likewise be interviewed. All the FBI people, all the local police. The local police have been whistleblowers here. I mean, they've been putting out tremendous stuff on the failures of both the FBI and the Secret Service. In other words, every individual agent of both of those organizations needs to be interviewed, and then they should try to interview civilians. You have all these people with their phone pictures showing in real time what was going on. I mean, that's what they need to do. They cannot let the FBI, they cannot let the Secret Service, they cannot let these Washington organizations run this investigation.
I mean, the fact, Larry, that not one person has been fired.
Right.
Not one.
Right.
How's that possible? Like the head of the Secret Service, she was forced to resign because even Democrats were calling on it, but she wasn't fired. Why didn't Joe Biden fire her, like, immediately? Right? Why hasn't Kamala Harris been talking more about this? Oh, of course, we know why. So yeah, I want to know who the site commander was there that day that said, we know that there's an active threat that's out there, but let's just send Trump out there anyway. Who possibly? I'm not at Secret Service. I've never been in law enforcement, but I have logic. And logic says if there's somebody possibly with a gun at an outdoor rally and you don't quite know where he is, then you keep Trump in that tent behind the stage for as long as possible until you find that person, before you eliminate the threat, before you ever put him out there. So to Mark's point, I hope and pray it's just incompetence, because if there's something else going on here, again, why else would you put him out there unless you wanted him to be out there and exposed to a threat? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I just find it amazing that this is the one job these guys have, and somehow they failed so miserably. And again, we're within 1 millimeter of having a completely different conversation about the entire fate of the free world right now if that bullet hits them. And no one's talking about this enough.
Mark Simone, I want you to tease the next segment, which is how is Kamala doing in her first week or so as the Democratic standard bearer? How's she doing, Mark?
Well, it looks like she's doing well, but this is just a sugar high. This is nothing. And she got the worst endorsements you can have. She got Joe Biden. He's the one that told us Kim Cheadle would do a great job. She got the Obamas. These are the two that told us Joe Biden would be great. So,
actually, I think Obama really didn't want to endorse her. I think Obama didn't want to endorse Joe Biden, for that matter. I mean, I think
if you check 2020, he did the same thing. He waited till the very last second before he endorsed Biden. Yeah.
But how is she doing? I mean, my argument is, in the Wall Street Journal editorial page, which is no friend of Donald Trump's, she's actually moving to the left. In other words, the promise that she would be an old your daddy's donkey, to use Joe's new book. She's not out there. She's talking taxes and entitlements. It's the same old garbage. No fracking. I mean, she's to the left of Joe Biden. What did Trump say? Biden was a phony liberal, and she's a real liberal. That sort of sums it up, I think.
Well, she's like Bernie Madoff. Very impressive until you start looking at the books.
Bernie Madoff. Holy cow.
Until you start investigating, she looks great.
I got to process that. Bernie Madoff now is into the conversation. All right, fellas, let's take a break. Joe Concha's new book is Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys, released on Thursday, July 30th. You can pre-order it right now. Mark Simone, Hall of Fame radio host, 710 WOR, weekdays, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And I'm still Kudlow. We'll be right back.
Larry Kudlow. From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
We're talking to Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. His new book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. That's out on Thursday. Tuesday. I can't count. And then Hall of Fame radio host Mark Simone, 710 WOR, weekdays, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The Wall Street Journal, Joe, in her campaign debut, Kamala Harris steers left. Student loan cancellations, new entitlements on health care, child care, family leave, seniors, end assault weapons, override state abortion limits, more progressive culture war, no fracking, higher taxes, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, she veered left right out of the box. The mainstream media will not report that, but that's the reality. What do you think?
We talked about Bernie Madoff before. Let's talk about Bernie Sanders, because Kamala Harris is actually to the left of him, right, as far as being a Democratic socialist. So if you're in Pennsylvania, for example, Kamala Harris is on record saying she wants to ban all fracking. She wants to end the fossil fuel industry. If she somehow wins the presidency, the result will be devastating job losses. So if you're a voter there, how could you possibly vote for this person? And by the way, when she was asked, hey, what happens to all those workers who are going to lose their jobs? She said, oh, well, they can just transition to something else. Sure, that's easy. So if you live in Pennsylvania and you're listening, roll the dice, take your chances. How about Michigan, by the way? She supports government-mandated electric vehicle pushes, right? The end of gas cars within a decade. So that also means massive job losses for auto workers in Michigan. Hey, how about if you live in Arizona or New Mexico? She has obviously said, as borders are, she wants to abolish ICE. She compared border agents to the KKK. She doesn't believe in border wall construction. I mean, 10 million people have entered the country illegally, and that's all under her watch. And, oh, by the way, she wants to give health care to those who are in the country illegally, all while eliminating private health care and making it all government mandated. She supports banning all offshore drilling, Larry. I mean, she supports, let's put it this way, 87% of Americans don't have any student loan debt, but she wants all of us to pay for the other 13% who do have student loan debt. Oh, by the way, we're just going to ignore the Supreme Court. She wants to expand, by the way, the Supreme Court. She wants the end of cash bail laws. She says you should be able to vote without a voter ID.
You know, she and Biden are going to go after the Supreme Court. It's coming up this week. Yep. They probably want to pack the court. They want something called term limits on the court, all because of the court's recent ruling on immunity, for example, for Mr. Trump. But it's not just for Trump; it's for any president, including Joe Biden, who was in retirement. Mark Simone, has Donald Trump pivoted properly yet to this left winger from San Francisco?
Oh, absolutely, and he's just getting started. Week after week, it's going to get better. She's like Mike Dukakis. It was like a fresh new face, looked great. So you start reading the fine print, then you just didn't want this person. Everything about her. Biden says he's passing the torch to a younger generation. She's 60. She qualifies for the senior discount at a movie theater. So it's not a younger generation.
Who is Willie Horton? Horton? You mentioned Dukakis. I'm thinking Willie Horton.
Trump will use that because Dukakis had let out of some criminals. Willie Horton ended up raping and killing. So it was a horrible story. By the way, it was Al Gore that started the Willie Horton ad, not.
Oh, that's right. During the primaries. Yeah.
So she's going to have a lot of that problem. And, they always compare it to 1968, assassins, riots at the schools, everything's president not seeking re-election. But remember in 68, it then fell to the vice president, Hubert Humphrey, and all he was known for was laughing and giggling and being a jolly guy. And in the end, that didn't work, and they wanted the law and order guy, the tough guy, and that's how Nixon got it.
So Trump's going to be – so that's an interesting point. Although I will say Hubert Humphrey was a little more than that. I mean, he was a serious person, civil rights advocate. But on the other hand, Joe, Concha, how is J.D. Vance doing?
He's doing okay.
Not so good, though.
Well, no, not so good.
Not so good.
The thing is that, okay is not exactly a ringing endorsement, but look, I always thought that Marco Rubio or Glenn Youngkin were the better choices. We talked about that on your TV show. Yep. I could see them being president in 4 years. I'm not sure I see that with J.D. Vance. And you see these reports that Trump is kind of having second thoughts about it. I doubt it. That's a leak coming from the other side. But in the end, Larry, no one votes for vice presidents. I mean, you look at the last couple of vice presidents that we've had on the winning side have been George H.W. Bush, right, from Texas, so didn't need that state. Dan Quayle, Indiana, didn't need that state. Let's see, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, didn't need that state. George W. Bush didn't need Wyoming with Dick Cheney. And Barack Obama did not need Delaware with Joe Biden. And Donald Trump did not need Indiana with Mike Pence. So, in other words, I don't think it's the top of the ticket that matters. It's Kamala versus Trump. And if Vance is only doing okay or not so good, I'm not sure it really matters at this point.
Mark, who's going to be Kamala's vice president?
I think she, in the end, goes with Cooper from North Carolina or Mark Kelly from Arizona.
What do you think, Mark?
Choices.
Oh, she likes Cooper. They're close. Supposedly Obama was holding out for something, and he likes Kelly, so maybe he held out to get Kelly the spot. You never know.
Did they give Biden a golden parachute, Mark Simone?
Oh, absolutely. He's got a publishing deal with a ridiculously high advance, a Netflix deal for many millions. Yeah.
You know, I'm going to make a bet here. Joe's book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys, will outsell anything Joe Biden writes. How about that? We'll go We're head to head. And Mark Simone, Hall of Fame radio host, 710 WOR. Gentlemen, you're terrific. Thanks very much, folks. We'll take a quick break, come back on the other side. We're going to talk about the Kamala economy.